Welcome to the Thought Vault, where we learn to unlock our minds to live with more purpose and bold intention. I'm your host, Emily Vermillion. Take a deep breath and let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Thought Vault. In today's episode, we are talking about numbing out. Are you numbing out? Are you stuffing, repressing, ignoring things going on so that you can just get through your day? I get it, so let's talk about it. It's so easy in our culture to get sidetracked. Whether subconsciously or consciously, we have created triggered reactions to things going on in our lives. We have created habits that we shortcut to when we are sad or stressed or overwhelmed. We do things to buffer our emotions and buffer what we're having to get done during the day with quick fixes. Our culture is inundated with quick fixes. Social media, they've done so many studies to show that us checking Facebook and seeing the notifications and checking them is like, it's more addictive than cocaine. It's more addictive than heroin because it gives us this weird hit of dopamine to see things like that, and we can't get enough of it. Like, you're constantly holding your phone all day. You're constantly, as soon as it chimes, you check it. We are completely controlled by these quick fixes in our lives to connect, to check out, and to buffer and numb ourselves from having to feel the things that we are actually dealing with in our real lives. You may not even be sure that you are, in fact, numbing out. I wanted to come on here and talk today about 3 ways that are good indicators that you probably are numbing out, and then 2 ways to really help yourselves get past numbing out. The first indicator is this. Are you losing it over little things? Are you snapping at your kids? Do you feel completely thrown and angry over a missing shoe or missing your keys when you're trying to go out the door? Is it easy for you to go from 0 to 100 in a split second? Feel the red, see the red, have the tingle from head to toe, getting washed in just aggravation? This is usually an indicator that you're resisting emotions, that there's something underlying that is bubbling up to the top when we are aggravated, or when the emotion that we're trying to suppress is tickled by a similar emotion from something unrelated. So if you're going through something that's, like, for instance, say you're having a really difficult time with a loved one, right? You're in an argument, you're having this divisiveness, and it's something you can't get out of your head. You're constantly thinking about it, like, why is this happening? And you get angry when you're thinking about it. So you have this underlying current of this going on right now that's like taking over kind of your thought life and what you're doing. And so it's preemptively happening in the background, right? Constantly. And then when you miss your keys and you're trying to get out the door, it tickles that aggravation, that anger, and you just explode, right? Trying just to find your keys. It's not losing your keys that is making you mad. It's that you've tickled this underlying emotion that you've been trying to numb out and repress and not deal with. So losing it over little things is definitely an indicator that you're numbing out because you're not dealing with what is happening in the background of your mindset, in the background of your current circumstance, whether it's with work, a relationship, home life, whatever it may be. It's normally something that gets tickled by that similar emotion. So losing it over little things is definitely an indicator that you are trying to buffer or numb out. Number 2 is, are you stuck in doing and not being? Are you stuck in doing mode? Have you fallen into this habit of working all hours, never putting it down, consistently filling up your schedule to avoid any type of time gap? Do you feel like you need to have plans and you're uncomfortable when you don't? This is a major flag that you are avoiding, that you are numbing out, that you are buffering your time with obligations in order to keep yourself busy and easily avoid something that actually deserves your attention and your thoughts to try to make a choice. Being in the mode of doing instead of being is definitely a flag that you are numbing out. It means that you are scared to get still, to have a chance to have that conversation that you've been avoiding because you've been quote unquote too busy, or, avoiding making a decision is necessary that you're procrastinating on by filling up your time so you can keep saying, well, I don't have time to figure that out right now, right? That's an easy solution to not have to deal with a bigger thing going on that really does deserve some maybe challenging conversations or challenging choices and decision making. And that is something that is easy for us to say, yeah, I don't want to deal with that right now. So let's put that on the back burner. I got too much going on, too much going on. That's an easy solution to not have to fix something. So that definitely is an indicator that you're avoiding because you don't want to make a decision and you're filling up time to avoid it. Number 3 is, in general, do you just walk around with less joy? Do you kind of feel wrung out? Just consistently tired and less than thrilled each day? Do you feel that you're searching for things to make you smile or make you feel joyful and happy during your day? You may be experiencing compassion fatigue, and I actually have an entire episode dedicated just to this topic. I believe that a lot of our climate that we're all experiencing right now, the culture that we're living in, just everything happening and at the fast pace that everything, gets added to our plate or gets added to our mindset because of the ease of news and Google and YouTube and all the things. Compassion fatigue is very real. And in that episode, we talk about it and we talk about ways to help remedy compassion fatigue. So definitely go check that out. In general, if you're just walking around pretty malaise and like meh, then you might be dealing with compassion fatigue. So I think it's worth going and checking out that episode. It's just titled Compassion Fatigue. How many times can I say that now? But when we are not having joy in our lives, when we typically are just waking up and not feeling excited about really anything, that means we normally have a lot going on under the surface. Whether it's negative thinking because we're struggling with an internal battle, whether it's with our confidence, our health, our level of purpose and intention with our day, or if it has to do with difficult circumstances that are outside of our control. There's so many factors that change our emotions and dictate our outlook on life. We are all the time tying our feelings to external factors and tying our joy and our happiness to external factors, when in fact, God created us with a mind that we actually get to control. And that means we get to control our thoughts too. If you haven't listened to the very first episode of the Thought Vault podcast, it's called Power of the Brain. Please go listen, because I talk about not only the science, but also how God created our minds to work. It is powerful and it's amazing to see what we can do by changing our thoughts. And so many of us get caught in the trap of not wanting to deal with our emotions, not wanting to deal with our circumstances. So we buffer and we do things that are quick fixes, like I mentioned earlier. Things that are false pleasures, right? Our brain was created to seek pleasure. That is one of its motivating factors for survival. Seek pleasure. It's part of our limbic system and it's part of the brain that controls most of our choices. So, with that in mind, if our brain wants to seek pleasure, it wants to avoid pain also. And it's the trifecta, wants to conserve energy. So when you think about those 3 things and you have something hard going on that you don't want to deal with, it makes sense that we're going to fall into false pleasures. We're going to binge eat ice cream. We're going to binge watch TV and stay up super late so that we can numb out, have mindless entertainment, and not have to go to bed so that we have to wake up and deal with another day that we are already seeing as being crummy. It is a very easy spiral to get caught in when we are trying to numb and buffer the real things going on in our lives. And it's just our nature. It's not anything to feel, guilty over or shamed over. That's not at all, what this conversation is about. It's really just bringing to the forefront of your mind that you may be numbing out. You may be doing these things to avoid having to grow and make changes and make choices that you don't feel like you have the bandwidth to make right now or the bandwidth to feel, because emotions are hard. They're taxing. They are energy drains, when they're not the positive emotions. When we're talking negative things, hard jobs, hard relationships, hard losses, hard health problems, whatever it may be that is happening in your world, of course we want to avoid those. Of course we want to do things that make us feel happy and give us a quick hit of dopamine and endorphins. So we're going to try to do those things. The thing I want to bring to your attention is that as we continue to numb out, the problem begins to grow. It's just like pushing a snowball down a snowy hill. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And soon, one little thing that we could have solved by taking the time to address it and have that difficult conversation then has now manifested into an entire relationship being shot or a job being the absolute bane of your existence, right? Where if you had just addressed this one issue with this one coworker or brought something to your superior's attention, and had that knocked out, you wouldn't even feel resentment or bitterness going to your job every day. So there's so many things that we avoid because in the moment we don't want to address them, but our bodies can't handle that. We can do it for a little bit. We can limp along and numb out and buffer for a little bit, but it's always, always, always going to come out. It's always going to make itself known. It's always going to have to be dealt with. And so it's our choice. And what I'm encouraging us all to do is to take the time to address it when it's a small snowball we can pick up with our hand and not a ginormous, huge boulder that we can't even push over without the help of a team, right? And so using that vision, I just want you guys to take into account maybe some of the things that you've been repressing, some of the things that you've been doing to numb out and buffer and not address. Because what is numbing out costing us? A lot, y'all. A lot. We lose a lot of time. That's probably the most painful thing that it costs us because time is finite. We don't get to have more of it. We don't get to buy more of it. And we don't get to know how much we actually have. Can you imagine if you earned money? Let's say you were born with an account that had money in it. And someone told you, okay, this is the money for your life. Use it well. And you had no clue how much you had. And you had no clue how long you were going to need it for. So you were trying to budget something, you had no way of knowing like the two most important factors, how much time and how much you had, right? So that is time. We don't know how much we have and we can't buy more of it. We can't go get more of it. And so time is what we have. Our life now in the present is what we have. So if you're numbing and buffering, well, guess what? You're not really living your real life. And that's what's sad because when we are doing those things to numb out and keep ourselves from dealing with what we need to deal with, we just get caught being stuck in emotions that are supposed to be temporary. That's the truth of emotions that people don't realize or don't consider or think about. Emotions are not characteristics. You can feel angry, but it doesn't mean that you are angry. You're not an angry person. That's not a characteristic. Anger is an emotion, and emotions are temporary. But what happens is we couple our emotions with our thoughts, and our thoughts become our reality. And so when we numb out, we are taking an emotion and we're saying, this isn't what I'm going to deal with right now. You lock it up, put it aside, and you go on about your day, but it doesn't mean that emotion goes away because emotions are meant to be felt. In order for the emotion to pass and to move along, you have to experience it. And man, I know that's hard. I know that's hard. I mean, I've felt all the emotions, right? And we don't want to feel negative emotions. Nobody wants to feel bad. No one wants to feel sad. No one wants to inherently feel angry or less than or any of the bad stuff, right? But for some reason, that emotion has been brought forth, whether it's from a death, whether it's from an argument, whether it's from a health crisis or an accident. That emotion has been brought into our lives. And so, in order to move past it and to get on the other side of it, we have to experience it. Living numbed out costs us our time. And when it costs us our time and we're living in this stuck place, it also will cost us our relationships. It will cost some of us our jobs. It will cost us a decent life. It keeps us from being present. And that's what we all know in our heart matters the most. When someone asks, like, what is the best thing about being alive? I think we can all dilute it down to being with loved ones, feeling love, laughing. And all those things take place when we're present in what's going on. When we're engaged in our family life, when we're engaged with our friends, when we are laughing, feeling joy and talking and having good conversation, like that's the good stuff, right? But if we're buffering and we're numbing out, we end up buffering and numbing all of it out, not just the negative, but we end up becoming apathetic, meaning we can't even experience the good stuff because our body is kind of in this survival mode. Our mindset is in this survival mode of don't feel, because once you open Pandora's box, you can't close it. When we aren't living out our real lives, we are missing the opportunity to grow as Christians, to grow as mothers and fathers and lovers and friends, to grow in our relationships with people, to grow in our, most importantly, relationship with Christ, to grow into a healthy person. When we aren't dealing with our stuff, we don't get to have any type of transformation or growth. Transformation comes from a challenge, right? Transformation happens out of discomfort. Because if it's not going to transform you, it's not going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be anything different, right? It's like if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's the definition of insanity. So if you keep numbing out and keep buffering and keep putting up barriers between your reality, your real life, and what you're trying to mitigate, there's going to be a wall before you know it that's going to take a monstrous amount of effort to break down. And so that's what I want to bring to your attention today. I want to call you out a little bit on that and encourage you to start living your life. And don't be scared. Don't be scared to live your life. Don't be scared to feel the feelings. Don't be scared to deal with the decisions and the challenges. But because you know what? Inherently, if it's something you're avoiding, you have to deal with it. And you have to deal with it because it's not part of your story. It's not serving you well. And you feel conviction over that. Sometimes conviction comes in the form of choices that you've made that you now have to deal with, circumstances that you're facing that God knows is going to bring you through to the other side, but we don't want to even start walking down that tunnel, right? We just want to wall that tunnel up and stay with what we know. But I think all of us can agree that most of the time staying with what we know isn't serving us well. And we know that there's things that we need to change. We know that there's things that we need to do different, or choices that we need to make to help us get to a different place in our lives, right? When the link is broken between reality and the numbness that you're creating, we are floating. We're floating through life. We're not receiving the blessing of being alive in that moment, in our current circumstance, good or bad. And in order to see what we are truly capable of and what God created us to become, that link stays broken. We can't experience those things. So how can we fix numbing out? Well, first we have to take responsibility. I know no one wants to hear that, but we have to take responsibility. We must recognize what we are capable of not doing and what we are capable of doing. It's important that we realize what we are doing to numb out. What are they? Are you staying up late to the point where you're just miserable the next day because you've been so exhausted from this day of trying to just make it that you come home and you're like, okay, I deserve to like do what I want to do right now. And instead of like dealing with what the problem has been all day, you're like, nah, I'm going to like enjoy mindless entertainment right now. I'm going to binge watch this show. I'm going to stay up till 1 a.m. because it's my life. It's kind of like you're rebelling against something, the thing that you really want to address. You're like, you're going to be a rebel against it, right? But it ends up shooting yourself in the foot because you're not getting to the root of the problem, right? Are you binge watching that show because you avoided all day long having a conversation with someone you needed to talk to? And now when you're, done with your daily responsibilities, when you could have this conversation or address it, you're like, nope, not doing that. Are you eating out of control because you're stressed? You're stressed because you're filling the gaps in your time because you don't want to deal with the bigger picture. So now you're filling the gaps. You're feeling stressed out because you have too much on your plate. You start grabbing sugar because it's a quick fix of energy. You don't feel good. You're perpetuating this health issue that you don't want to have, but you're creating. Are you keeping that calendar full? Are you nitpicking with your loved ones, blowing up when you can't find your other shoe? Are you feeling a roller coaster of emotions day in and day out? Like every day it's just a roller coaster. Or are you just completely like the emoji with the line eyes and the line mouth? You're just like, meh. And you're just getting no satisfaction out of your daily life. That is heartbreaking. That is not how God created us to live. God created us to live with zeal, to live with hope and excitement and joy. And no, every day is not going to feel great. Bad stuff's going to happen. Crap's going to go down that you don't want to be a part of your story or your life or your circumstance. But you know what? God is still present in all of that. And He knows that that was going to happen. He knew that that was going to come down the pipe for you. Lean into Him instead of, I can't deal with this right now. I'm not even going to go there, right? And so you start numbing out and you start taking away from what could give you life in this circumstance. You take away from that possibility by numbing out, doing what you can to avoid. We need to take the steps to work on our thinking, to do the discovery, to pinpoint what is going on that's triggering us into these false pleasures, these quick fixes that we're trying to utilize to not deal with the hard stuff or the important stuff. And I would say the first way to take responsibility is to journal it out. Like get a piece of paper and write it down. You know it's going to come through. Every time I've sat down in stillness and got a piece of paper out and wrote what I was feeling in my heart when I knew I was going through a difficult time, I mean, you can't stop it from coming out. It comes out. And so that's a good way to just get it out and read it, see it for what it is and say, yeah, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what's on my heart. This is what, as soon as I can get still enough to allow myself to go there, it comes out and it's obvious what you need and what is bothering you. The second thing to be on the road of fixing this numbness is to accept where you're at, accept where you are in your life right now. Remind yourself that this too shall pass. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent here, guys. Nothing. Everything is going to turn to dust. But you can make emotions and hurts feel permanent by living with them in the respect of not dealing with them. You can make a bad circumstance worse by not addressing it and by trying to numb it out. And then you're perpetually dealing with it because as you numb out, you become that apathetic person. You become that person who feels blah about their life, who feels less and less joy. The higher you build this wall, the deeper and the wider it becomes because you just keep packing on ways to avoid, ways to numb out, ways to not handle it, not to face it. And so the biggest thing to do is just accept it, face it. Say, yeah, this is what I'm dealing with right now. You may need outside help. You may need Christian counseling. You may, some instances when we're having a major crisis or a major traumatic event, sometimes it's a crisis or traumatic event that causes us to numb out. You may need external things to help you get through that. But I want to encourage you that even things like medication and stuff like that, while it may be used and needed for a season, it's not a fix. It stops the symptoms, but it doesn't stop the root cause. It doesn't get rid of the issue or the brokenness or the trauma or the hurt or the anger. And so to get past it, to truly heal, we have to get to the part that has happened. We have to get to the root cause. We have to face it head on and accept it. And even if it's an acceptance of a health issue, that's okay too. But accepting that there is a health issue involved, that helps us to handle it in a way that we can still experience our life and be present and not be numb. We're trying to avoid being numb and apathetic to our lives. It's important. And so the encouragement I want to offer you today is that we are created for a purpose. Each one of us, even if you don't feel like you're living a purposeful life or you feel like, why would this be part of my purpose? Why am I having to handle this or deal with this or any of that? The ultimate encouragement here is that everything that's happening, everything that comes into our lives is a chance and an opportunity to either grow or learn or expand our understanding, and to most importantly, learn more about God, because through all trial and tribulation and circumstance, Christ is present. Christ is present with us. And that's something that we can tend to overlook or not believe is relevant to us. God takes care of everything. He makes sure that every bird gets fed, every flower gets nourished. Of course, He cares about you too. And of course, He is there. But it is up to us to make conscious decision and the effort to lean into what is happening, to be present in our lives. It's our choice to be present in our lives. It's our choice to wake up and step in faith and walk out in hope and experience what it is that we are presented with that day, and know that there is purpose behind all of it. I've talked about this with coaching clients, and even most recently, I was talking about this over on social media. This question applies. If you were to think about where you will be in the next 5 years, if you do what you've been doing for the past 5, how does that feel? What does that vision look like? If you do for the next 5 years what you've been doing for the past 5 years, do you feel like you'd be pleased with that outcome, with where you could potentially be? And if not, what are you doing right now that you could change? What are you doing right now that you could face and make a decision about, and stop numbing out and stop procrastinating and stop repressing and stop overtaxing yourself so you don't have to chase that dream? It could even be a good thing. Like, what if you're numbing out because God is tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, you should do this. You should take this chance. You should do this crazy thing that feels uncomfortable. What if that's what you're numbing out from? Wow. What if you did just take a chance? What could your next 5 years look like? What could it be? We are not going to live any different or experience anything any differently if we don't grow and transform ourselves. And the only way we can grow and transform ourselves is to be present in our current circumstances, face it, learn from it, grow from it, make choices from it, and see what intentionally living each day can do to push the needle forward, to move you forward, to move you closer and more expressive in all the unique skills and gifts and passions that God put in your heart when He made you. Because we all have them. And you not knowing them is probably because you're numbing out from your day-to-day life, and you're not even available to see what opportunities are right in front of you, or in what ways you could serve God right in front of you that would fill your heart and get you creative and give you an idea that you could utilize to change your life or change the lives of those who are in your circle. It's wild what God can do when you're present in your life, when you're experiencing all the emotion, growing from it, leaning into Him when it feels like it's going to break you. There's so much opportunity for growth in all of it. So don't numb out, don't buffer, don't fall into false pleasures, don't fall into the negative habits of doing things that are not going to serve you well. Be aware of it, take responsibility for it, accept where you're at, and get to work. That's what I want to encourage you to do. Get to work, not to add more to your plate, but get to work in helping yourself in the way that God created you to be, and get closer to that, because it's a divine appointment for you to be here in this time, right now, in this year, in this day, in this climate. We could have all been born at different times in the world's history. You were born right now for a reason, okay? You were here for a reason. So don't numb out from it. Don't buffer. Don't just go about doing the same old thing and not experiencing the goodness. It doesn't mean, something crazy or wild has to be part of your story, but man, just to feel love is enough in this world. So be encouraged today, everyone. You have so much. You have so much at your feet that you can step into right now. Make a choice to. And if you need help with that, reach out to me. I'm a life coach for a reason. It's what I love to do. I love to help people and encourage them and help them see and make a plan, set goals, and take action that's going to change their life. If you want more training and community, especially around this topic, please head over to our private Facebook group called The Bold Insiders. You can click the link in the show notes or go to boldpearls.com/insiders. And I just want to encourage you again, guys, to just write it out, get it out on paper, what you're dealing with, face it, and let's do the work to make ourselves better, to transform our lives, and to be renewed. And with that, until next time, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. Go live with bold intention, everyone. Bye for now.